There's a lot of people in today's news who are talking about the law and morality and how they believe some people believe it's a very simple thing. What is morality and ethics and justice and the rights of people? They say it's very simple. You know, I do not agree with that. I think it's very complicated. And this whole issue sometimes just jumbles around in my head. So I'm here today and I'm going to tell you some things that I haven't really completely come to a conclusion about. But, you know, there is a group of people right now who are calling for a return to the founding fathers' roots in Christianity as a basis for law and morality. And it's my belief that that's not exactly accurate. People want things to be simple. And if you look at the founding fathers and when they wrote down the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, some of them were Christians. There's no question. I mean, they came out of England, and England was a Christian nation, and that was part of what influenced the thought process without question. But it also came out of the what they call the Age of Reason, and some people like John Locke and what was his name, Jean Rousseau, whatever his name was, that was read by fellows like Thomas Jefferson, and he wrote the Declaration of Independence, if everybody remembers, and that is part of it says that man was endowed by his creator with certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that assumes that people had these rights when they were born. And I wanted to talk about, what are the rights and what is justice and so forth, because, when Thomas Jefferson wrote that, he was a slaveholder. He owned people as property. They didn't have liberty, and they didn't have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And yet he said that was a man was endowed by his creator with that stuff. And there was the other questions regarding this. Thomas Paine and Benjamin Franklin weren't exactly religious people, and they were some of the founding fathers of the American system. The American system came out of Locke and Rousseau, and Rousseau was kind of an original libertarian. He believed that man was basically good, and he believed in the noble savage, and he believed that it's institutions like governments and religions and so forth that bring evil into the world, and that men are mostly pretty good if they're not forced by these institutions into forms of evil. Now, Locke, on the other hand, believed more like that if men were angels, then we wouldn't need government, but men are not angels. So government is necessary in order to stop people from abusing each other. These were the influences in at that time that were pushing uh, Jefferson and his beliefs, and a lot of the other founding fathers. So they sat down. They had the revolution, and it was a radical revolution, of course, that ended a concept of the kingship. It was the first country, at least at that time for a long time, that let individual men have the right to decide the laws and the rights. And of course, in those days, there weren't as many rights. Rights have expanded over the years. That in those days, for example, like I said, there were slaves, landowners were the only ones allowed to vote, and women, of course, weren't allowed to vote. And it's changed. It's become over the course of the American history, the more and more people have gained more and more rights. So they had to fight a war to allow the African people to have the rights in the United States, the people with African heritage, and then of course they finally allowed the women the right to vote in the 20th century. But it took, that was over 100 years before all those rights came out. And we're still constantly redefining the rights and what is justice. Because, see, I have a different viewpoint of what is the rights and justice. When something is justice, a little kid will come up to you and he'll say to you, well, that's not fair. And little children have this inner sense of justice that it's difficult to tell if they're actually born with that inner sense of justice or if we start teaching them this sort of thing from the very youngest age. But they do seem to have more of an inner sense of justice. It's simple to them. But justice and the rights are what the traffic will bear, in my opinion. You have justice in the Afghanistan, for example. If you're a woman and you go out without a veil over your face, then they'll throw you in jail or they'll cut off your nose or something. And everybody says, oh, that's not fair, but that is their justice. And if there's a lot of people who say that animals have a right to life, but animals really don't have a right to life. The rights and the justice that exist are the ones that exist within a certain political area. See, that's how we have developed our justice is over a course of time. The people vote on it, or there is movements to make justice and make the laws. And Thomas Jefferson, when they wrote the Constitution, he was in France, and when he came back, he said, "Well, there's no rights hardly enumerated in the Constitution. We need to put some rights in." And the first thing they did is they wrote 10 laws, or 10 amendments onto the Constitution, rather, that gave people and other things rights. And the first right that they came up with was the First Amendment. And it says in the First Amendment that Congress shall pass no laws respecting the establishment of religion or restricting the free exercise thereof. And then it says you can't restrict free speech or the press. All right? But the first thing they enumerated was that no religion should have any bearing upon laws in the United States. So when you see these people and they're going around saying, well, we need to go back to the founding fathers and the biblical Christian background, well, maybe that wasn't really what the founding fathers were about. I don't think it was at all. The founding fathers wanted to get away from religion, actually. But the question is coming, where do rights come from? Where does justice come from? Is it just a matter of the voting? The majority of the people say that this is right, therefore it's right? Or is there something like a natural law? Now, there's a party, the Natural Law Party in the United States, that does believe that there is a natural law. See, I'm not positively sure how we come to our conclusions. You may think that this is something that's spiritual and that or even genetic, that causes people to have this sense of justice or what is right. But if you look around, there are only a few universal laws and a few universal rights that are international, and like one's against incest, and I think cannibalism is frowned upon very heavily in most societies. But people believe that it's okay to kill in certain situations. I mean, right now in the United States, it's okay to kill. If someone is convicted of a crime, then they get electrocuted on the electric chair if it's a severe enough crime. So it's okay to kill. And it's not okay to rape, I suppose, but it has been throughout history allowed. Rape has been okay because don't forget that throughout most of the Middle Ages, the aristocracy had a right to be able to rape whoever they wanted to. The princes rode out into the fields looking for virgins, and whether or not their family liked it or not, they were allowed to rape those virgins because they had a right to all the women on their property. So There are no. This makes me wonder what rights are universal. Now, now we turn. Right now, there seems to be a big question about these gay rights that are going on right now. People are passing laws in some states saying that marriage should only occur between a man and a woman, one man, one woman. And then there's other states that are saying that it's legal to marry if you are a man and a man or a woman and a woman. And the president just came out and said that he thinks that homosexuals should have a right to get married. And that's where these people come out and say, well, the Christian founding fathers would have never allowed this. Well, I don't know about the Christian founding fathers, but it probably wouldn't have allowed that back then. You know, back in the founding fathers' days, they wouldn't allow any blacks to vote. They wouldn't allow women to vote. They wouldn't allow people to get married if they were black and white. You know, there were a lot of things that changed. It's like what Hegel believes is that rights are, as we advance in the future, becoming more and more universal. So this is a development that I don't know if it's a spiritual, natural development, or if it's just the way that we are evolving as a society through some sort of a just natural inertia that more and more wider rights are available to people. See, now my opinion, I agree, that I don't know why the government right now is involved in marriage in any way. I don't see that that's the purview of the government in any way. The government, what are they going to do? It's a religious institution, marriage. It's a social religious institution. The reason they originally required marriage licenses is so that they could test everybody for syphilis, I believe. And now, that's kind of become a moot point. So we have no purpose behind the government even enforcing any marriage at all. What we want to do is we want to find out about paternity in a lot of cases. When a fathers a child, he should be held financially responsible by the government for that child. But beyond that, I don't have any idea why the government is even involved in marriage. Because it's just wants to, that's one thing that everybody wants to push, is my morality on everybody else, and we have the force of law to do it. So I don't know. This thing is all mixed up. So I can't understand personally why it should bother somebody in this town here that somebody else is married over there in that town there to whoever they're married to. And that goes for polygamy as well. If everybody in the marriage, if you're a man and you have three wives and all three wives agree, why is that a problem? Why does the government have to get involved in that? If you didn't get married and just lived with three women and then had like some sort of a religious ceremony or a social ceremony, but you never got married legally, then nobody would have any trouble with it. They would just say, oh, there's a weird bunch of people. So this whole thing, this morality, I guess it brings to question a lot of folks in the United States and in other places base their morality around the law. Whatever the law says is where they base their morality. But, that's kind of an interesting question, too, because, I mean, is speeding immoral? I mean, let's say you're driving, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, it's light out, and you're on the freeway by yourself. There's no cars around in any direction. If you go 80 miles an hour for a few minutes, is that immoral? I don't think so. The whole idea behind the law is that we have to have some commonality about individuals being able to be judged equally by the government. Or as they like to say sometimes, my right to throw my fist out ends at your nose. See, that's what the law is all about. It's to make sure that everybody gets an equal break under the law. So anyway, thank you very